This is the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show, and today I'm pleased to have the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Peters of The Alarm. How you doing today, Mike?
Excellent, Eric, thank you.
What do you remember about The Alarm's first show at the Victoria Hotel, June 6, 1981?
Well, there was nobody there when we came on the stage, or we were stood at the side of the stage, and most of the people who were in the hotel that night were in another bar on the other side of the building. And I said to the guys, we can't go on and just play our best songs straight away when no one's here. So I had a riff that I'd been working around. I said, look, let's just go on and make some noise and shake the guitars and bang the drums, and I'll just make up some words over it and people maybe think, what's that noise going on? Let's go and see what this band's all about. And then once they're all in the room, we can play Marching On and The Stand and all this kind of stuff. And so that's what we did. And the song became Shout to the Devil. It became the opening song of side 2 of The Alarm's debut record Declaration, and started many, many gigs over the years for The Alarm.
The UCLA show was epic. What was that experience like for you? And when you got the word that you were going to do it, did it blow your mind?
Well, I don't think any of us realised what was happening at the time up front. We'd just been offered a show at UCLA, I think, to coincide with an MTV broadcast. I think we were being guinea pigs, really, to be honest, to do a global satellite broadcast. And nobody quite knew what the impact was going to be. Because a year before that, in '85, it had been Live Aid, but that wasn't televised live. It was live in country, but not live around the world. But this was the first time that technology was ever being used. We had gigantic trucks at the side of the stage, and we were waiting for a satellite dish to come out exactly at 3 o'clock, and we chose 3 o'clock because it was the daylight. But it was a good time for right round the world. It was the evening in Europe, it was the morning in Asia, so it's probably the only hour of the day of the 24 when everyone's technically awake. And so, and also it was a low budget production, really. The production was getting the satellite dish, so again, doing it in the daylight when there didn't have to be a fortune spent on lights. Yeah, I remember Eddie, who we were talking about earlier, was distraught that we weren't doing it at night and you couldn't see the full production of what the band was all about. But by doing it in the daytime, in hindsight now, I can see that it accentuated the power of what we were doing. It probably helped to create the mosh pit as we know it today. You know, it was because it was in the daylight, everyone could see the movement of the audience and everyone pushing to the stage and reacting to the music, and I think a lot of people thought, I want some of that. Yeah. You know, and a lot of bands thought, I want to have some of that at my gig as well. So it was in its way, it was very much a groundbreaking concert, and it's definitely a legend in the history of The Alarm, and people still go back to it now, and it still looks great and sounds great.
What led to Wasted Talent owner and U2 agent Ian Wilson becoming The Alarm's manager in '81, and what were the pros and cons?
His secretary saw us first playing, and I think she came along to see us playing with The Fall in London, basically to stop us going around and banging on her door and desk and trying to get to the agents who were behind the door as a secretary she was protecting. But she really liked the band, and her and another guy got us a gig in a club called the Rock Garden the next day. We've been trying to get a gig in the Rock Garden for years, and then next minute, 24 hours later, an agent rocks up and gets us a gig straight away. And it was the buzz of the industry went, in 24 hours it was rammed with all A&R men, and we went on stage and we thought, we'll give it everything we got. And then we came off stage, we're in the dressing room, and nothing happens. Nobody comes in the room. We thought, oh, we've blown it. And, about 20 minutes, half an hour goes by, and then this secretary comes in and goes, oh, look guys, Ian Wilson wants to meet you tomorrow to talk about going forward. And we thought, oh, fantastic, we've got something there. Years later, we found out that the secretary had actually been barricaded us into the dressing room, and so she could keep all the other industry figures out of meeting the band and protect us for Ian Wilson. But when we met Ian Wilson, we just said, look, we want to make it on our own right. We'd supported loads of bands up to that point, and we said, look, we want to just do our own gigs. We don't want to be a support band anymore. And he said, okay, respect that. And then it was Christmas 1981, we're getting ready to go home for the holidays, and then we got a call, and it was Ian. He said, guys, I know you've said a lot of things today, but there's an opportunity coming. Do you want to play with U2 tonight? And it was like, oh no. We've only had this rule 5 minutes. And then Nigel, the drummer, grabs like, yes, of course we're going to play with U2. And we met Bono, and it was great. Our careers went off, and a year later we we were invited on the war tour. We came out to America, and that was a lot down to the relationship I had with Bono and the band. It was also down to the relationship Ian Wilson had with Paul McGuinness, U2's agent. And I think the tough part was bands were sort of starting to take, U2 were always 3 albums ahead of us. They were way ahead, really. But we were catching them up in our own little way, and we were playing gigs, and we were doing just as well from a concert point of view. I think McGuinness had to say to Ian, Ian, you've either got to be U2's agent or the Alarms manager. And to be fair to Ian, he came with us as the manager. And he was young and he had lots of ideas, and he was, to me, he was the 5th member of the band. The only downside was when he was forced out by everybody, really, because of a couple of things that had gone wrong. It was a big mistake. People didn't realise he kind of glued the band together much more than people gave him credit for. And it was his idea to do UCLA, like U2 had created the idea of Under a Blood Red Sky and Red Rocks, which we were at. So yeah, we had a lot to be thankful to Ian for. He was a great manager, and he's still a great friend to this day.
The Alarm became very close to you two.
Became really good friends with Bono. Yeah, just we were musicians learning our way. At the time, he couldn't play guitar when I met him. So I offered to go and show him a few chords in the hotel, and a great friendship started. And when he was doing his solo show last year in the UK, the Surrender tour, I went to see him in Manchester, and he stopped the show and said, "Look, 40 years ago I was here with the Alarm. Mike's in the audience tonight and recovering," and he gave me a great shout out. And I don't think he did it for many people across the tour. And he's always had a kept his eye out for me and sent me messages when I've had to face life challenges, and whenever we met up, it's like it was yesterday.
What kind of person is he?
Well, he's like when I saw Johnny Rotten. He means it, man. He's the real deal. When he says he's going to do something, he does it. He's aspirational, always ambitious. He's always loyal, dedicated to the people around him. He wants the best for everybody. And of course, some people might have had experience that didn't meet up to their expectation, but I don't think that's Bono's fault. It's more people expecting too much from one man. At the end of the day, he's a human being, and he can only do so much. And if you walk out of a door and there's 500 people waiting to shake your hand and say hello, you're going to disappoint somebody, but that's not his fault. That's just the expectation of human beings on another. As far as I can see from the person I met in 1981, he's never wavered from who he is, what he's wanted to achieve in life. He's done way beyond what anyone else could have done in the same. I admire him because what he's used the situation he's created for himself to better the world and make a better place for other human beings. So I always admire him and respect what he's done. And he's still the same person that I met in 1981. Whenever I meet him, he's still the same guy. He's a force of nature.
I don't know if you ever heard of the band Stryper. They were like a Christian heavy metal band. So I toured with them, but I was a personal roadie. Yeah. So a lot of times, the singer Mike, he'd come up to me after the show backstage and share like, "Hey man, we're gonna do this," or "I just wrote this song," or whatever. Do you ever get any of those moments with the hug, like, "Hey Mike, come on over"?
Always, yeah, that's it. Yeah, even with Bono, he used to phone me up and say, "I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? I've got this title called Joshua Tree for the album." I'm thinking, I don't know about that one. I'd say I'm not sure if it's what it is. But he was Bono would always try his ideas out on you, and because I think as an artist, you're always insecure about the new creations you have. You need to let them into the world to understand them. They're like your children, aren't they? You don't know what they're going to become till they get into the world. You have hopes and dreams, but you're never quite sure if it's going to work out. And it's the same with any musical project or art project. You're never quite sure what the outcome is going to be and what it's going to bring into your life. So you have to treat everything equally, and I think that's what Bono does. He treats every occasion equally. That's one of the things I learned from in 1983, whether we were at Red Rocks and thousands of people, or playing down the road in Salt Lake City, 500 people. They put on a stadium show no matter how many people were in the audience, and they give it everything they've got when they went on stage. And when they came off stage, their focus was on the next show, protecting themselves so they could go out the next day and give everything they've got to the show. And I think that was really admirable.
So how did the deal with IRS come about?
Well, we got seen by a guy called Steve Tannett, who was an A&R man, and he'd been in a band called Menace, and he saw us supporting the Boomtown Rats and gave us an audition in front of Miles Copeland in a Notting Hill Gate rehearsal studio. At the time, we had a potential deal to do a single with EMI, but IRS offered us the chance to make an album. That was the game changer, and Ian Wilson was our manager. He said, "Look, this is owned by Miles Copeland, so IRS Records understand America," and I think that's important for the Alarm. And he was right, you know, when the call came to go and play with U2 in America, Miles Copeland was, yeah, let's get him on a plane. You know, if it'd been EMI, they'd say, why go to America? You haven't broken here first. So that was really important. And IRS Records understood independent music and out of the box thinking. It wasn't just throw money at the wall and see what sticks. They stuck with their artists, tried to break them in different ways if the traditional methods didn't work. You know, and you had to look at REM, Wall of Voodoo, all the great bands that came out of the IRS catalogue.
The Go-Go's?
Yeah, the Go-Go's, superb stuff, you know.
What was your relationship like with the Copeland brothers?
I only really knew Miles, to be honest. I knew Stuart as a little bit as a drummer of the Police, but we only played with the Police twice, so got on more with Sting because his nanny was an Alarm fan. The girl who looked after his kids used to come to all the Alarm shows. He's like, I can't get away from your band every time I'm at home. It's the Alarm music in the kitchen all day, you know, and all that sort of stuff. But they were very approachable, I think, all of them. Miles was too. Let us stay at his house. You know, he was a really good guy.
So you hung out with Sting?
Yeah.
What? Tell me about that.
Well, not a lot to tell, really. I've told it. You know, he was just good with his. He was just a good guy. You know, when you meet him, he likes his football, his sport. And he wants to talk to you about daily things, and he's cool.
The Blairing Out Show.